Welcome to the HMO Property Podcast, where we connect, educate, and inspire the UK's HMO property community. So stop what you're doing, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. What's up, HMO Nation, and welcome to another episode of the HMO Property Podcast. In this episode, we interview successful HMO property investor Sara Poskitt. Sara is going to take us on her HMO property investment journey, including the ups, the downs, the highs, and the lows. Now, Sara's been investing in HMOs for some 11 years now. She's completed over 12 HMO projects and currently houses around 40 HMO tenants herself. So let's jump straight in. Okay, Sara, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rupert. Thank you very much for having me today.
Great to see you. Before we dive into your HMO journey, give us a bit of your background on what you were doing before.
So I went to university in Leeds and studied environmental science, and after my second year at university I kind of came to the conclusion at that time that really the thought of working in a job for 40 plus years wasn't really floating my boat at that time. I was living in a city where there's a very, very strong rental and property market, and I could see the opportunities out there. And I grew up in a household where my dad was a builder in my early years, so I understood the concept of how you can make money from property. So I decided, although I knew I would have to, get a job once I'd graduated, that really properties was where I could see myself long term. So I started whilst I was finishing my education, and once I got a job, once I'd graduated, freelancing for some private landlords in the area who needed some help marketing their properties, finding tenants, organising light refurbishments. And really the purpose of that was twofold. One was obviously to make a bit of extra money on the side in order to save up a deposit to buy a property, and the second was really just to get a bit more experience within that field, which is what I did for a couple of years until I was in a position to buy my first investment property at 22.
Fantastic. So throughout your university career, you were helping out landlords, get the service that they needed in order to make money themselves.
Absolutely, and a lot of the landlords I was working with at the time were slightly older generation, and I think because of my age it was a relationship that worked really well because I was ultimately their demographic. I was within that age category of the kind of people who were renting rooms in their properties.
So about your first deal, was there anything holding you back from doing that first deal? It sounded like you got most of the pieces of the puzzle.
Not really, to be honest. The first property I bought was a HMO, a 5-bedroom HMO. It was a repossession. I lived in the property, so I was a living landlord and rented the bedrooms out, which was fantastic for me because I didn't have all the money up front to do all the work that was needed to the property. It was also in the days where the mortgage interest was over 7%, so it was a massive chunk of my monthly salary going to pay the mortgage. So obviously having tenants living with me, paying rent made a massive difference in order to help me pay the bills and save up to do the rest of the renovation work in the property as well.
So let's just talk about that first deal. You saved up for it. What did you buy it for? What did you spend on it? What did it revalue at?
So I bought it in 2008 for 113,000. And just to give a bit of context, really, 18 months prior, the person who owned the property had paid £275,000 for it. Wow. So it really gives an idea of really, I think, how overinflated house prices were at that time. So as I say, it was a repossession. Within the first 12 months, I mean, I literally I remember I had £11,673 in my bank account when I bought that property. Half of that money went towards my deposit, and I had about 4 grand to actually do some work to the property to get it in a habitable state, not only for me to live in, but to try and get some tenants as well. So I spent in the first 12 months probably about £10,000. I did the kitchen, I did the bathroom, replaced the carpets, but I did a lot of the work myself. So, scraping wallpaper, ripping out kitchens and bathrooms, taking stuff to the tip, decorating in order to save money. I've still got the property today, and it was valued in January of 2018 for 230,000. So it's fantastic. It's doubled in value, but again, I think it still shows it's still not up to £275,000. It's still not up to that peak value of what it was at the peak of the market.
And what does it cash flow even now?
It cash flows just under £1,000 a month.
Fantastic. What a great first deal. Sara, tell us how over the last 11 years investing in HMOs has changed your life.
It's completely changed my life. So I worked full time whilst I built up my property portfolio on the side to a level where this time last year I was in a position to finish my job and work in property full time. So for me, without a shadow of doubt, it's completely changed my life. Now I can be working on my property business full time. I don't have a boss. It's to my schedule. I've got the flexibility, come and please as I want. I was working in a job previously, driving over 1,000 miles a week, 60, 70 hours, highly stressful, a lot of pressure. You really couldn't get two opposite kind of positions of where I am now compared to where I was a year ago.
Love it. What's your favourite part of HMO property investing?
I think my favourite part is actually being able to provide homes for people, not just bog standard accommodation. The properties that I do and the market that I focus on is really high end, really good quality accommodation for both students and young professionals. And with any kind of property, I love the transformation of something taking it from a tired and rundown property into a home. But I think as well to provide really good accommodation. When I went to university, when I was a graduate, the standard of accommodation was absolutely diabolical. So it really does make me very proud to be producing homes that, I have the motto of if I'm not prepared to live in one of my properties, I don't rent it out, and that's kind of the rule that I live by.
If only more landlords were like that, we might have a better reputation.
True. I'm not perfect, and you do make mistakes, but I think as I say, that's just what I try and live my life by.
Great stuff. Sara, we've talked about the past. Before we move on to the present and your future plans in HMO property, let's take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Are you looking for an effortless HMO mortgage experience? If that's a yes, there's only one place to go: www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk, the UK's #1 specialist HMO mortgage broker. They're so specialised that they don't do anything else. HMO mortgages, HMO remortgages and HMO bridging. That's it. They have access to every HMO lender out there, and even some exclusive products not available to other brokers. With lightning fast service and A1 communication, they're easily the best HMO broker in town. So to experience HMO lending made easy, go to www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk today.
Sara, fast forwarding to the present day, tell us a bit more about your current portfolio.
So at the moment I have 2 HMOs which are rented out to students, 3 HMOs that are rented out to young professionals, and then I also have 2 small commercial units and 3 buy-to-lets. All of my HMOs are between 4 and 6 bedrooms.
Okay, so you keep it simple, you don't go for the big ones, you just like to produce a quality, smaller product that people like to live in.
Yes, I found that just works for me personally.
Got it. Tell us about your single best or favourite HMO investment today?
I'm going to be a bit cheeky here and give you two, if that's okay. The first one, I have to go back to the first property I ever bought, because it's really what was the catalyst for my kind of property journey. And what I didn't mention earlier as well is when I bought the property, 6 months after I'd bought the property, I got made redundant and I was out of work for several months. And the fact that I was able to rent those bedrooms out in the property, it really cemented to me how important it was to have an income other than just a job. So that will always, have a special place in my heart without getting too kind of cheesy about it. But probably my favourite HMO property has to be a student property that I bought about 3 years ago. And it was just a perfect example for me of, so often in property, so many things go wrong when we're doing these projects, but it really was a project where I just ticked every box. Everything just went fantastic, got it at a really good price, did a basement conversion on the property to take it from a 2-bed into a 4-bed HMO, student HMO, ensuite, really high standard. It was a money in, money out deal, and I've had 100% occupancy with it. So it's just, more of them, please.
They're out there. You just got to keep looking.
Sure.
Next up, Sara, tell us about one significant mistake that you've made in your HMO business that by sharing with HMO Nation here, you might help them avoid.
I think for me, the biggest mistake I made was for the first 8 years, I did everything myself. So everything from rip outs to managing refurbishments to finding the tenants, managing that tenant relationship, doing the paperwork. I did absolutely everything myself. And it's a double-edged sword, I think, because on the one hand, obviously, when you do everything yourself, you learn ever such a lot about the industry and how the whole process works. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that, but I did it for too long. And I think what that did is it prevented me from increasing my property portfolio at a greater speed. And now really I'm the opposite. I kind of outsource as much as I possibly can to free up the time to enable me to do what I feel is my strengths, or where my strengths lie, or where only really I can do that, and that's finding the deals and finding the money to cover those deals. So, I'm an advocate of kind of paying other people to do as much as possible now.
Got it. And how about your HMO portfolio plans for the next 12 months? What are you aiming for?
So the plans for the next 12 months, I'm just finishing a 5-bedroom HMO conversion in Leeds, which will be done at the end of September. And then I have 2 more HMO purchases going through in September and October. The plan is to get the HMOs up to at least 10 over the next 12 months. And the idea behind that really is to generate sufficient income that I can start to bring some people into the business internally to start taking over that management, so it's done to my specification and how I want it to be done.
Got it. I know exactly what you mean. We trained our lettings agent in-house. We brought them on as a fully employed member of staff. We trained them to do it the way we wanted it done. And then we set them up in their own HMO management business. And it just gives so much peace of mind that your HMOs are being properly managed all the way through.
Sure. No, that's exactly what I'm looking to do. It's one of my biggest challenges at the moment. So it's absolutely a priority for the next 12 months.
Apart from building the HMO portfolio, is there anything else that you're up to in property or outside that you'd like to share?
The majority of what I do is HMO based. However, I touched on it earlier, I have a small number of commercial properties, and that's something that I'm looking to increase as well over the next 12 months, and also do a couple of small conversions, if I can find the right deal. So just expand that portfolio a little bit, but absolutely it will be made up predominantly of HMOs.
Got it. Sarah, what advice would you give to any current HMO investors, people that are already in the market?
I would say, as I've sort of touched on already, if you feel like you're doing a lot of the work yourself already, look at ways of trying to outsource some of that work, especially if you're still working full time in a job. I've been through it myself, and it can be incredibly stressful, and it eats up on that family time. And in terms of any other advice, I'd say for HMOs, the only piece of advice really I give to anybody is all about location. I know we hear it bandied about all the time, but for me, you get the location right with the HMOs, and to a level, if you get in my experience, if you get the location right, the standard of the property can drop a little bit if the demand is there. So for me, I've made mistakes in the past where perhaps I've bought a property not in the best location. It's become incredibly a lot of time invested, trying to find those tenants for the property. Whereas if you get the right location, you're looking at 90+% occupancy throughout the year, and that's what we want as landlords. It's a business at the end of the day. The last thing you want is empty rooms.
Got it. And how about any advice you'd give people who are looking to get into HMO property investing for the very first time?
I would absolutely say just educate yourself, whether that's going on training courses, reading as much as you can, speaking to other investors, networking, go and meet as many investors as you possibly can. If you get the offer to go and see a property that's being renovated, go and have a look, touch it, feel it, see it, smell it, and understand that. However, I would say there's a balance to be had with that. I have a lot of people contact me through social media to say, I've been looking at investing for the last few years, and they just haven't quite gone for it and actually bought something. And I think sometimes you can do kind of too much research or too much education, and you need to just go out there and do it. Ultimately, I've accepted every property I buy, I look back on and think, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. I think you just have to learn from it and take it to the next one. So it's not being scared to just take the plunge and go for it, and just be accepting for yourself that, it's not going to be 100% perfect. You just got to get out there and do that, because there is only, in my view, a certain amount of education or a certain number of books you can read or courses that you can go on. It's only going to take you so far. You've got to take some action.
Paralysis by analysis, I think they call that. Sarah, before we sign off, we'd like you to recommend one great HMO resource or business book that you'd like to share. Then let HMO Nation know how they can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Thank you, Rupert. I think for me, one of the greatest tools I've used over the years, and certainly when I first started out in property, was joining the Residential Landlord Association. I think it costs about £80 a year. I'm still a member now, and I just think it's great value for the content that you get on there, both through the website. They've got the telephone number that you can ring and speak to people from the RLA there if you need legal advice, and there's a whole load of documents that you can download from the website as well, so tenancy agreements, templates for letters and things like that. I will just caveat this by saying I'm not associated with the RLA. I just certainly in my early years, when you don't have a lot of money but you do want to learn, I think that's a great starting point. They do a quarterly magazine, I think, as well. Like, you kind of keep up to date with legislation and what's happening. So I think that's a great starting point. We're doing a conversion in Leeds, so we're going to do an open morning on the 28th of September for anyone who just wants to basically come and have a nosy and ask us some questions. So if you're in Leeds and you'd like to come along, it would be fantastic to see you. The email address for me is sara.poskitt@lomot.co.uk, or you can find me on Facebook and just drop me a message there.
Do you have a website at the moment, Sarah?
No website at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we put all those links in the show notes page at the bottom of the website. Sara, thanks for sharing your HMO journey. We salute you. Let's get an HMO high five.
There we go. Thank you very much for having me, Rupert. It's my pleasure.
See you again soon. Thanks, Sara.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this and want more informational, educational and inspirational HMO property content, then please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. See you next time.